Labour crackdown on non-doms may raise no money, officials fear. And this is a Financial Times headline as well. Reeves ready to tone down tax raid on rich non-doms, hopes fade of raising extra billion a year. Labour intent on ending special status. Um, what's your take on this rumour that seems to have been leaked, I guess, by sources in the government, that Labour's no longer going to pursue the non-doms for this money?
Well, it's quite likely. I mean, they have abandoned so many promises. I won't have enough time to list them all. But here, what happened is that they announced a policy, said that they would raise about 2.6 billion from changing the non-dom taxation. Jeremy Hunt came along and preempted it. Then Labour went back and said, hey, we are going to go after these people's capital gains and inheritance tax issues. And that would somehow net £1 billion. And it appears that that won't now materialize. I actually think it was a great folly by the Labour Party to actually put a number in their manifesto about how much they would raise from non-dom tax reform. Let me just read you a quote from the 2019 manifesto. At that time, John McDonnell was Shadow Chancellor. They said, we have not assumed income from measures that could well raise significant revenue, such as the scrapping of non-dom status, because we believe tax policy should be evidence-based, and we currently lack the evidence base to make precise predictions about potential yields. That is a grown-up approach to estimating the tax yields and putting promises in the manifesto. So I don't think either Rachel Reeves, Starmer, or their advisors actually looked at any evidence, because the evidence is about human behavior. That said, I think a reform of non-dom tax is long overdue. Tories have gone some way towards it, essentially saying that after 4 years, somebody spent here, they're going to pay taxes on their global capital gains and wealth, subject to a hell of a lot of exemptions. And Labour now wants to chip away at some of those exemptions, but I don't think they've really done any of the groundwork. So that is what is really disappointing about it. And indeed, when I look at other bits of the Labour manifesto, if I may give you some examples about taxes, they look fairly childish too. In the 2024 manifesto, they said that they hope to raise £5.23 billion by non-dom tax reform and also by reducing tax avoidance. That number, 5.323 billion, would somehow materialize in 2028-29. So that, again, is very, very childish. How are they actually going to do this? They say they will increase the HMRC staffing. Well, certainly that would help. But how on earth are they going to challenge the Starbucks, the Googles, the Microsofts, the Apples of this world? HMRC makes absolutely no estimate of the UK taxes lost by profit shifting. There are nearly £800 billion of wealth stashed by UK residents in foreign jurisdictions. About 570 billion is in tax havens. HMRC makes no estimate whatsoever of the tax consequences of that. What HMRC does is it makes sweetheart deals with big corporations and the rich. So you might struggle to get through on the phone line to HMRC, but HMRC will sit down with giant corporations and the wealthy and say, what would you actually like to pay? And that settlement is reached. That is not in the public domain. Parliamentary committees can't ask any questions about that, because if they do, the standard response is, sorry, tax details are confidential, we can't discuss them, and that is the end of that. So in 2019, in the Labour manifesto, there was a key proposal. The proposal was that we would require all large corporations, we could extend it to any corporation. The proposal said we will require all large corporations and wealthy individuals to publish their tax returns so that we can then see at a glance what exactly they're up to. That would also empower somebody like the Public Accounts Committee then to ask questions about what on earth is going on. We don't even know whether HMRC at the moment applies the tax laws fairly. It may make some concessions to giant corporations and the rich, but is that reasonable? Are they being even-handed? So that promise of publication of tax returns is eliminated from 2024 manifesto. So there is no way they can fight this organized tax avoidance. And the 5.23 billion, which Rachel Reeves mentions, pales into insignificance because since 2010, by HMRC's own admission, over 500 billion pounds of taxes have not been collected because of evasion, fraud, error, avoidance, you name it. HMRC's model for estimating that is highly suspect. I have raised that in the House of Lords. The other model suggests that since 2010, we have failed to collect somewhere between 1,400 and 1,500 billion pounds of taxes. So Labour's not going after giant corporations. It is not really going after the offshore. It is not trying to give transparency to empower citizens and parliamentary committees. So the chances that it will collect a puny £5 billion, those chances are already eroded because 2.6 billion of that has already been taken away by Jeremy Hunt. So what that means is things it was promising like extra nurses, free school meals or whatever, or breakfast clubs, they are under danger. They are under danger from self-imposed fiscal rules as well. So I think, there is a real problem here about how professional have they been in preparing manifesto promises.
I mean, that they're saying it costs too much to try and find this money and stuff like that. They weren't saying that in the manifesto. Now they've come out with that. But the thing that has come out this week are these headlines, and this was at the party conference as well. I mean, Starmer's been talking outside there too, saying sickness benefit claimants should look for work. And this one here that you've identified as a really scary story of Labour's benefit fraud crackdown would allow officials to access bank accounts. Proposals will require financial institutions to share data that may help identify scammers. It seems that the people who are going to be paying for everything are the poor, not the super rich. And that invasion of people's bank accounts is really scary, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. First, they went after the children through the two-child benefit cap. Then they went after pensioners with the winter fuel payment cut. Now they're going for a broader category of the old, the sick, the disabled, the infirm, the unfortunate, and basically saying we will snoop on your bank accounts. So these people are assumed to be criminals. Okay, they will have absolutely no right of appeal against the snooping. They're going to resurrect a Tory bill, which was called the Data Protection and Digital Information Bill, and they want to undertake 24/7 snooping of their bank accounts. Now, that would obviously boost bank profits. And you can't rely on giant corporations' analysis either. What have we learned from the post office scandal? That their computer systems will generate data which is somehow reliable. So the old, the infirm, the disabled, the sick will have no right to financial privacy. But tax evaders, money launderers, those who abuse the PPE system, companies which receive giant welfare payments, subsidies, they will actually be entitled to financial privacy in this upside down world. It is totally and utterly wrong. And well, I will certainly oppose this, but there are all sorts of quirks in this. So many British citizens may be entitled to some kind of benefits, but they may have, if they don't have a bank account and their benefit is paid into a daughter, son's, neighbor's, or a friend's bank account, that bank account will come under snooping too. Many people's housing benefit is paid directly to landlords. That means landlords' bank account will come under scrutiny too. And I've met some landlords when the Tories floated the equivalent bill, and they were ready to kick out people. They were saying, oh, we don't want our bank account snooped. Therefore, why on earth should I be renting out premises to somebody receiving housing allowance? So, in other words, government will end up creating another kind of crisis. And I think this is all wrong. At the moment, they do have powers to, as it were, demand bank information on a case-by-case basis. It is not 24/7 snooping, which is what they're going after. And I really think the ultimate aim they have and the Tories have is one day to make the state pension means tested. Because if they can snoop on your bank accounts, they will eventually say, okay, you have too much money and somehow the cost of the state pension is too high. The fact that somebody's paid 40, 50 years to get it, that would be utterly irrelevant. So I think as a matter of principle, we ought to oppose this, and I will oppose this. But the sad truth is the Tory bill passed in the House of Commons. Labour did not vote against it, against the snooping. They supported it. It came in the Lords. A number of us opposed it, and then it basically died because of the general election, and we thought, well, that would be that. So this snooping was not in the Labour manifesto. This is just something that has been dreamt up
So
by
Labour were picking up a Tory piece of legislation and running with it anew in this Parliament.
Well, they basically are revarnishing it. My sort of feeling is what they will do is initially say is that we will only go after the recipients of means tested benefits rather than all benefits. In other words, they will quieten the pensioners who already feel hurt by the winter fuel payment. And this is how they will push their agenda. But we have to remember many pensioners also receive, pension credits, which are means tested. Yeah, so that means they could still be captured by this. So I think it is a bad development. It is utterly undesirable. If they want to do snooping on bank accounts, go after tax evaders, money launderers, accounting and law firms who design tax dodges, go after corporations who are getting subsidies, go after drug companies who are overcharging the National Health Service, snoop on their bank accounts and their executives. But that is not what they are doing. That is not what they're proposing to do. But the real sort of problem here is that Starmer has such a big majority in the Commons, and he thinks he can push almost anything through. And in the Lords, even though we would oppose this, the same kind of principles are going to apply. There are too many who will just say, yeah, it is the push by the party, let us support it. That is the real issue here. So what we need is pressure out there in the streets. We need pressure in the media, forcing government to backtrack on this proposed piece of legislation.